this video, we are going to go over the basics of a plank. So we're going to go over a few variations of the plank. I'm going to give you modifications and just demonstrate how you can do this movement safely and effectively to reduce your risk of injury. So first we're going to come down onto all fours. And first I'm going to show you the first plank. We're going to be all the way out on our arms like we would be in the top of a push-up. So first, before I even come out, I'm going to get in my quadruped position. I'm going to make sure that my shoulders are stacked directly over my wrists, so I'm not too far out in front of me, and I also am not underneath myself. So stacking those joints directly over, then I'm going to make sure my hips over my knees. And before I even start going out into a full plank, I'm going to practice with just 1 foot at a time. So here I'm going to make sure too that my belly isn't drooping towards the floor and my lower back is arching. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to find my neutral spine. My low belly is going to draw up and in, and my transverse abdominals, which is the core muscles that wrap from the back, they go in this direction all the way to the front. We're going to keep our ribs locked into our hips, and those are those muscles that do that best. We also have our internal and external obliques that are going to fire. So low belly up and in, we're going to lock the ribs to hips. So try to imagine one straight line here. I'm open. You can also imagine an open pair of scissors where my ribs are flaring and my pelvis is flaring. Now I'm going to close those scissors and find my neutral spine. So that low back will be a little bit flat. So first I'm going to start with one leg going out, and I'm just going to make sure, can I even hold this position, which is one leg out, and still keep the ribs locked into the hips. So this is a great place to start to work on your plank, is just 1 foot at a time. Do both sides, and also make sure that you can keep those hips nice and even. So I'm not lifting a hip up, and I'm also not drooping my hips down towards the floor. So I don't want to be a human slinky and moving all around. I want to be nice and tight and keeping that core locked in. So from here, if I can keep this position, and I can also breathe while holding that core engagement, I'm going to see if I can practice both knees. So from there, I'm going to really have a tight glute squeeze in my glutes that keeps that pelvis where it needs to be, keeping those ribs locked into the hips. Another option you can do is bringing your knees back just a slight bit. Then you're going to come over, so the shoulders will still be over the wrists. But now I'm just doing a half plank on my knees. So I'm still having my tail slightly tucked to lock the ribs to hips. I can move my knees even farther back and come out. And I can practice my plank from here. When I'm ready, 1 foot, and then when I'm all the way ready, both feet. So with my upper body, I'm really making sure that I'm pressing both hands through the floor. It'll create a little bit of separation in the shoulder blades. So we don't want to be with the shoulder blades tucked at the ears in our plank. All right, so those are some of my tips for doing a plank full out. You can also do planks on your forearms, especially if you have wrist issues. So I'm going to come down onto my forearms. So I see this a lot. For the planks that I'm going to show you, instead of having our hands interlaced or having our arms in and our elbows flaring out, we're going to make sure that our shoulder, elbow, and wrists are in a straight line. So I'm going to show you from this direction and then the other direction as well. So again, I'm going to make fists. I'm going to make sure, kind of like robot arms, that I'm tracking in the same direction as my shoulders. So again, not out here. I'm going to draw them in. I'm going to tighten up through my back muscles, coming down to show you this way. So again, I'm not coming here and those elbows will start to flare out. I'm going to make sure, locked in right here. Same thing with the legs. Fix my own self here. There we go. Really drawing those forearms to the floor, making fists. You can plant the fists through the floor as well. I'll show you from the side. You'd want to do the same thing. Once you have that shoulder set up, you want shoulder over elbow instead of shoulder over wrist. So again, I'm not going to be all out here. I'm going to stack right over. I'm going to push my forearms and my fists into the floor, press away, create that space between my shoulder blades. I can also do this on one knee, and I can switch knees, or I can come all the way out. I'm going to have a tight glute squeeze, low belly up and in, ribs locked to hips. And I'm going to make sure that I can breathe in that position. Another option to modify these is to find a bench or a chair, something elevated, so that you can try these planks on an elevated position. That way you don't have the whole weight of the body on their plank. So that is a way to modify that, and I'll show you that here with this bench. And slide this bench on over. So I would do the same thing on an elevated surface that I would on the ground. So here I can come out, and maybe if I'm on the floor and I can't get my feet all the way out and keep that core locked in, if I don't have that strength yet, I can come up on an elevated surface, and more than likely I will be able to have both of my feet out and to be able to hold this position for a little bit longer than I would on the ground. So that's a way you can progress and move up. You can do the same exact thing on the forearms. I still want to try to keep the shoulders and elbows stacked. Still want to keep those robot arms stacking, shoulder, elbow, wrist, nice line. Don't let those elbows come out and flare. So those are my tips for your plank. So hopefully you can use those. Again, start where you need to. You can always progress and move your way up. But it's really hard if you start at, let's say, level 5 and you're at level 1. It's a lot harder to go back if you start at level 5 and you're not ready for it and injure yourself. You are going to have to wait a lot longer before you can progress. You're going to have to start at the beginning after you've recovered from your injury. So always start. If there's a level of progression to something, start with the first level. You can always move up. It's a lot harder if you jump to level 5, get hurt, and have to go back down. It's going to take you more time. So be smart with your training and be well. See you guys in the next video.